Hey guys, Sam here from Ellie Rose Party Designs. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a My Little Pony character cutout, or as known as centerpieces or table decorations. This video is going to be a two-part series. I'm going to be showing you how to design it, how to actually make it yourself, and then how you would assemble it, cut it out. Now, you don't need a cutting machine to use the software, but I'm going to be showing you how to use the software too. Sorry, how to use the cutting machine also in the second video. Okay, so if I get a lot of questions about how can I make my own centerpieces, I can't find any decorations, I want to make it myself, yada 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 yada. So I thought it would be a good idea to show you guys how I make my own centerpieces. It's very quick and very easy, and I use the software called the Silhouette Studio software. I actually have the upgraded software, which is the Designer Edition, but Silhouette Studio software is a free software which you can download online, and I'll link that down below. But if you guys are interested and you're wanting to learn more about how you can make your own party printables, which you are welcome to check out, I will link it down below the video. But this is my e-course here that I launched just a couple of months ago, how to create party printables the easy way. And one of the main questions I got asked was, how can I make my own party printables? I don't see anything that I really like, or no one's offering this particular item. Whatever the case might be, I thought it was a good idea to put together a e-course. And in the e-course, I show you pretty much step by step how to make your centerpieces, and cupcake wrappers and toppers and tags and labels and popcorn boxes and everything and in between. And so you're welcome to have a look at it and go through exactly what I actually show you. You do not need a cutting machine for this particular software. So my e-course that I show you, I actually show you how to just use the software, and then you would print it out at home and you would cut it by hand with a pair of scissors. Okay, so but I make my printables mainly between this software and Photoshop. Okay, so if you're wanting to learn how to make your centerpieces, then stick by and I'll show you how to do it. Otherwise, please feel free to check out my e-course too. Okay, so we're going to be making My Little Ponies. First thing I would do is go into Google and type in My Little Pony. Oopsie, My Little Pony. And I would go into images and I would search for a image that I would want to use. Things you need to make note is that it is a large file. It preferably has a transparent background, so if you even wanted to, you can type in here transparent background. And it doesn't matter if it's a PNG file or a JPEG file. If it is a JPEG file, then it will definitely have a white background, which you can move, and I'll show you how to do that. Otherwise, a transparent background, which is mostly a PNG file, is also a great one. Okay, so another thing you need to make note is obviously the size of your image. Anything that's over 500 pixels is really, really good, so I would definitely recommend something like that, or even something like that. That's a great one too. That's a great one. That's an excellent one. See, that one I probably wouldn't recommend, because the smaller it is, and if you want to enlarge it into a centerpiece, it's going to be very pixelated. Okay, so you want to make it at least over 500. Another great thing to do is to is to go into, where am I going? Into tools and go into size and click on large. And then it will pretty much bring up everything. I think that's over 1,000 pixels too. Okay, so which is a great one. Another thing I would definitely recommend, so once you want this image here, make sure you click onto the image, then right click and save the image that way. Okay, this is a transparent background like I was just telling you about. So these little gray and white squares, that means it's a transparent background, which means there's nothing behind it, okay? But then you have something like this one here, probably. Finish loading up. Okay, that's got a transparent background. Transparent background. Okay, this one here does not have a transparent background, but it's got solid lines and there's nothing behind it, so it'll be a good one to use. And it's 6,182, which is a really big file, which is pretty good. Okay, so once you have selected and saved your images that you want to use, you want to import them into your Silhouette software. And by doing that is, once you've signed up to your Silhouette software and you've logged in, I will link down below the video where you can download the software too. You then go into libraries, you right click here, add a new folder. You would then name your folder. There's My Little Pony folder there, and there are my 3 ones that I'm going to use. Okay, so we're going to go with this one here. Alright, another thing I would need to suggest is that you click onto the right hand side here and you make sure that your size of your paper is what you're wanting it to be. Now I'm based in Australia, so Australia has A4, A3 sizes. In America it'll probably be 8.5 by 11 inches, which is a letter size, which is this one here you guys would use. Alrighty, so for this purposes I'm going to use letter size, but if you're in Australia you would use A4 size. Wherever you are, whatever your printing size paper is, that's what you're going to click onto. Okay, and by doing that you just click onto the page setup button, which is on the top right hand corner here. Okay, so we're going to click onto our image, and first thing I notice is that it has a box around it. I like to make sure, I like to have a white border around my character cutouts. It just makes it stand out a lot more, and normally the white background for me would be an extra layer of cardstock. Okay, but for those of you that know me and that know my my printables that I do offer on my blog, I still have the white border around it, but it's just added to the image, if that makes sense. Okay, so this you can actually find. So if you're not wanting to learn how to make all of the stuff and you just want these centerpieces, I will link down below where you can just download them and make them yourself, and then just go to the second video and learn how to make your centerpieces yourself. Okay. Right, first thing I would do is make sure that there is no box around your image, which it more than likely will have. Okay, what I mean by that, if you have a JPEG file, you will notice that there will be a white box around it, and you would need to remove that box. Okay, but when you have a PNG file, you would still have a box around it. So what I mean by that is, if we click onto this and we do an offset on it, you see how the offset around it goes into a box. We don't want that. We want the offset to go around the actual image. Okay, so in order to do that, we will have to trace around the image, and by doing that you go onto the right hand side here and you click onto your trace panel, and this little box will pop up, and then you click onto select trace area, and we're just going to drag, and once it is completely covered you're going to release. Now you'll see that there's a whole bunch of yellow. Alright, we want to make sure that the whole image is yellow. Okay, let's zoom in here slightly so you can see what I'm talking about. Alright, so by doing that you need to up your threshold. You see how it's now starting to go completely yellow, and that's what we want. And all I'm going to do is hit trace and detach. You can also just hit trace, but I'm tracing and detaching. And then you take your image and you move it to the side. Now let's just scale back here, and you can kind of see that there is a whole bunch of little lines. We're going to highlight that, and we are going to hit delete. Okay, if you do not delete that and you're going to actually use a cutting machine to cut out this image, you're going to be cutting out all these little dots too, which you don't want. So always make sure that there's nothing on your canvas besides what you are wanting to cut out. Okay, so now if we click onto our image now and we go to offset, you'll see now that the offset has just done around the actual clip art, which is what we want. Okay, now what I'm going to do is to change that to 100. So just by hitting the offset button, your little offset tab is going to pop up, okay, and then you're just going to change the distance to 100, or if you want to make it a lot more smaller, say 80. I go between 80 and 100. All right, and hit apply. Now, if you take this image, it's going to obviously completely, it's not grouped together, okay, so you want to make sure that you do group it together. All right, now, this is where it gets a bit confusing. All right, so because your background is most likely going to be white, you wouldn't probably worry about coloring this in. But in order for it to just make sense and that you understand what's happening, I always color my offset. And by doing that, you just click onto that. You click over here on the right hand side and it will bring up your fill panel, and I like to fill that in white. Okay. Now, if I wasn't going to cut this out, all right, so you're cutting lines, the red lines. If I wasn't going to cut that out, I would then change the lines to be black, okay? And then I would pop my image back on, like so. I would highlight it all together, and then I'll go on the top right, sorry, in the top left, on the top tab and click Group Select. But actually, before I do that, sorry, just go back. All right, I would group it together, and then I would make sure that they are lined up by centering it. And there we go. And then I would group it together. So now it is one piece. All right. If you obviously didn't group it together, so if you detached it and you grabbed a hold of it, it's not going to be grouped together. So always make sure that it is together. Highlight both of the pieces. First, I would make sure, oopsie, oh, come on. Make sure that it is lined up and then hit group. Okay, like so. Now, next thing I would do is, and I don't think that is lined up. Let's just make sure. Oh, that is. Let's see if I do that. Ah, there we go. Sorry, I was hitting the wrong button. I was hitting this one here, but it's actually that one there you need to hit. Okay, and then group it together and hit group. Okay, now it's one piece. Okay, now let's click onto our image and we are going to drag it. You want to make sure that you've got the offset with the actual image when you drag it, so that you know that it's going to be the same size when you cut it out. Okay, now you want to make sure that your image stays within the page. Because obviously, if you go off the page, A, it's going to not cut it properly, and B, it's not going to print it properly either. Okay, so that is the size we're going to go for. So that is going to be a 9-inch height, and it's going to be an 8-inch in width. Okay, and that's because it is on a paper size, which is also known as letter size, or an A4 size. Okay, but if you did have a bigger printer, or if you did want to print it out at your local printing shop, you would then change that to A3 size. Okay, or I believe, I'm not too sure what size it would be in America, but I'll just go with A3. Okay, because that's the size print I've got, and then you can make it even bigger. Alright, and you can also, if you wanted to, maybe even, you could do it like that too. Okay, but make sure that it is within the lines. Alright, like so. But because we are going to be printing it on A4, let's just reduce it down. So the next step now would be to print out your image and to cut out your image. Okay, so if you were just going to make your centerpiece and then just print it out and not use a cutting machine, then you would just keep it with this black border around it, which you can still do if you're going to cut out of the cutting machine, but I feel that's just a waste of ink if you are going to. And this is what I would do. So if you are going to use a cutting machine, first thing I would do is just to ungroup it and make the lines transparent, because your cutting machine's already going to know where the lines are anyhow. Okay, so let's pop your image back in and center it and group it back together. Okay, now if you're going to make a two-sided centerpiece, so you're wanting to pop these centerpieces on the table and your guests will see both sides of it, okay, then I would duplicate this whole one, which includes the backing or the offset behind it, and I would right click again and flip horizontally. So you're going to be printing it out both sides. Okay, and then don't forget, when you are sticking them together, you're going to be sticking them flip side, and that's how they're going to join and connect and match up. Okay, so I am all set up, so let's hit File and Print. Excuse the noise in the background because that will be my printer. Make sure it's set up on your printer that you're wanting. I use an Epson Artesian because it prints out on A3 papers, which is A3 plus paper, shall I say, and it's a really good quality printer. Alright, and then hit Print. Alright, and I'll be back once it's printed and we'll start cutting out our image. Okay, so once you have finished printing out your image, we're now going to pretty much send the details to our cutting machine so that it can start cutting. So to do that, you just go to the send button on the top right hand corner here, and here is our preview of how it's going to work. So on the right hand side here, you have your different actions and you need to just pick which one you want. If you click onto it, it will actually tell you what it's going to do. Alright, so this one here, which is cut, figure out why. Oh, sorry, we need to hover over it. Alright, so first you need to click onto the image. If you hit just cut, it's going to cut out this part of your image plus that part of your image, which is not what you want. Okay, you want to cut just the outer part onto the offset. So you would just click onto cut edge, and that is what we want to have cut. Alright, so your material, you want to make sure that it is on cardstock, which is plain cardstock, but you have all different types of settings. Okay, so you've got here, you can just copy paper too if you want, but we are going to have just plain cardstock paper, which is that one there, and you want to keep it to cut. Okay, and you leave that as it is. Now your cardstock, because you're going to be cutting on a plain cardstock, you want to make sure that your settings are around 4. I would just keep it as speed 4, force 20, pace. Alright, I won't even worry about any of that, just keep it as that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I am going to go to actually filming how I do the cutting, how it actually cuts. Okay, so as soon as I hit send, it's going to send it straight to my cutting machine and it's going to start cutting my image. But before we need to do that, we obviously need to load the machine with our image and start cutting. Alright, which is what I'm going to start to show you in the second video. So I will see you in the next video and we will start cutting and assembling our centerpiece.